So I'm Ruth, and I live in Tel Aviv, and I'm here to talk about the Rabbanut. That's, I guess, it goes into what you've been up to. And I thought to myself, because I'm opposing the Rabbanut as it is today, to start from trying to find the logic of it. Why did anyone think it would be a good idea to build Rabbanut? And what was the initial concept? And then what went wrong, and can we fix it? And if we can't fix it, what can we do to live with it, to try to undo the wrong things that are done? So I'll say what I think. I'm not sure. I'm not a specialist on anything historical, especially not the Rabbanut. I'm not exactly sure how it came about and what the stages were. But since the establishment of the State of Israel, Ben-Gurion understood very quickly the biggest question that is difficult to solve among the other very difficult questions that are difficult to build and to do, but the one that is a real challenge is the question of identity of this state. We built here the homeland of Jews. But Jews, first of all, some of them don't want a homeland. They feel at home in other countries. I guess you know some of your best friends. They feel at home in another country, and they don't think of this place as their home. Some people thought it would be a mistake to even have a homeland, but the spirit of the time, the zeitgeist, and the establishment of the state, and Zionism before it, was the zeitgeist of nationalities and nation states. So the Jews wanted a nation state like the other peoples had. And the initial idea, if I am doing it the right service, I'm just trying to be honest as what was the effort of trying to build here was a homeland, a nation state, a place for the Jewish nation, the Jewish people, to have a homeland, to have a home. There was no thought of building a Jewish, as in religious, state. Judaism is a word that has two different meanings. Judaism as a religion and Judaism as a culture and nationality. When they used Medinat Yehudim, it is the state of the Jews, meaning it's not a religious, not a Jewish state as in a religious Jewish state, but a state for Jews, a national state for the Jewish people. And the religious question is a personal question for each one of the Jews that either want or do not want to belong to a religious community. Now, the state as such was not religious, and therefore did not have to choose what kind of religion, what kind of church you belong to, Reform, Conservative, and so forth. It was just Jewish in the national sense of it. But once the state was established, there was still the need of marriage and divorce and burial and the personal status of people. And that was traditionally done by rabbis that lived in the different communities. And the rabbi in the community would hold the books of who got married, who got divorced, so the children will not be without a family and a heritage, and a person will know where they came from and who they can marry and who they shouldn't marry and so on. And there was pressure by the Orthodox minority to give all this authority to the Orthodox minority of Jews that came from Europe and kept halacha in the way that the majority of Israelis did not keep anymore. And Ben-Gurion made a decision that I think is one that brought about a lot of trouble. But maybe at the time it was the most logical thing to do. I do think that Ben-Gurion was a great person and leader. And maybe he thought this is a minority that's going to vanish very quickly and there'll be no trouble. But so he gave them, he established an Israeli rabbinate, not like all the other rabbis and little rabbinates that used to and still exist in the places you live in and all around the world. there were rabbis without strong authority or money or power, because there were little places, and the communities would hold the rabbi and the rabbanut. Today it's a big state, so the rabbanut is as strong as the state, very rich and very powerful. And they gave this young rabbanut of the time the authority for personal status. And that's where the trouble begins. Today in Israel, and every day since 48, you cannot get married or get divorced or be buried or be converted or anything to do with your personal status in any other official way but the rabbanut. Once you do want to do it outside the rabbanut, like when I got married, we did it in Cyprus, you have to go around to go abroad and get married and then come back and bring the authorized papers from Cyprus and go to the Ministry of Interiors and say, I'm already married overseas, and then they say, you're married. But the simple move of going to City Hall or going to anywhere you live and registering as a couple that wants to get married does not exist here. And the only one door is the rabbinic door. Now that wouldn't be such a problem if they would be more flexible in who can get married and how that could be done. But they are very strict about doing it the way that it used to be done in their view, or their ancestors did it in their view for many centuries. I don't think that was the case. I think different communities did it in different ways. It was much more flexible, and the father could perform marriage, and a cousin or a friend or anyone could. There's no halachic need for a rabbi in a marriage or in a funeral or in anything of that sort. But today, the ones that can get married through the rabbanut are only the ones that are considered Jewish, but in their eyes, and that are male and female. No other couple is accepted as a couple by them. And there are many other, there's a lot of other problematic situation when a couple wants to divorce. If the man goes first to the rabbanut, to the court that is rabbinic, the law by which they try to find a solution between the couple is not egalitarian, but very chauvinist, and it's according to what used to be in centuries before us. And so a woman can find herself with very little, and the whole dissolving of that family and going on living in a different way might be very traumatic, instead of finding a solution and looking for the best of the children in keeping a good relationship with the mother and the father or the parents and going on to another life.
Isn't that the shift with the Rabbanut came with Miriam granting them the power of personal status? So, but the Rabbanut existed before Israel existed as a state, yeah?
The Rabbanut, the Israeli state Rabbanut, when there was no state, the Rabbanut doesn't have national, איך אומרים, ממלכתי. It doesn't have authority. When it doesn't have the authority of a state, then people that want to be customers of a Rabbanut come, and the other ones can go out. Today, the exit is locked. You cannot go around them. And once you do something that is to everyone, but it doesn't suit everyone, then it becomes challenging. Rabbanut in Bulgaria, where my father grew up, was a beautiful thing. It was a rabbi that takes care of the people. He knows them. He knew them when they were born. He was there when they did Brit Milah, and he knows their parents. It was something very personal. And there is a fit between the Rabbanut of a community and the community's values. Today, when there's one Rabbanut, it fits a minority of people. Today, the ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel don't go to the Rabbanut because they are too open for them. And we, the secular majority of Israel, doesn't go to the Rabbanut because they're too strict for us. So who do they serve? There was something came about. There was a creation of an entity that started with good intentions, but became too powerful and not fit for most of the communities. I'll give you an example, like from the bottom line. Last year was a year of Shemitah. It's like this Shabbat in a week. Shemitah is for the years. Every 7 years, there's a year where you don't own your land, and anyone can pick up your apples, and it's a very beautiful, sustainable idea that exists in the Bible. That every 7 years, you let the land rest for a year, and it doesn't belong to you. It's like exercising less belonging, ownership. And there's a lot of money in the state that goes for farmers that want to let go and let the land rest. And there's 80 million shekel that is available to do things for Shemitah. And I was trying to bring about another ideal of Shemitah that exists in the Bible, and that is that families that are in debt can go into a process of financial rehabilitation and then kind of cancel their, erase some of the debt and find a solution and become free again. It's a beautiful idea. Again, it's sustainability and healing, and it's good for everyone. And the banks were agreed, and the phone companies agreed, and the president gave us an official opening. And Professor Eugene Kandel, who is the Prime Minister's advisor for economy, said it's a great idea. Everything was fine. And then I tried to legislate it. I was in the Knesset at the time. And after the first time, it was voted for. And the second time, the rabbinate canceled it. Now, the rabbinate is not supposed to be able to cancel legislation. They are not Knesset. But they have Knesset members that work with them, for them, and they cancel it because I am a secular person and I belong to a party that is not affiliated with them. And Shemitah, they feel, that's how I understand it, belongs to them. They don't want us to mess with the 80 million. They don't want us to start feeling that the Judaism is ours to be creative with. And they canceled it.
Are you talking about MKs who are officially part of the rabbinate?
No, they're not official.
So people who are in Shas or something?
It was the Ashkenazi.
Just so we're clear, and so I'm clear, your idea was that families that would be in debt, farming families.
No, any family.
What would they be able to do? They would be able to work the soil on this year?
No, it has nothing to do with the soil. In the Bible, when they talk about Shemitah, another piece of Shemitah is Shmitat Chovot. That is cancelled at the end of the 7th year. Now Hillel, the sage Hillel, saw that people stopped giving loans because they said, I'll give a loan on the 6th year, they won't give it back on the 7th. So he made up a concept called prosbul, which says there's no Shmitat Chovot. If you owe money, you have to give it back. I wanted to bring back the genuine biblical idea and do Shmitat Chovot and not harm private people, but for the bank, it's a good thing because for them, it's called dirty money or bad money. They know they're not going to get back their debt anyway because the people can't pay. And in this healing process with the non-profit organizations that do economic rehabilitation, they will get at least a third. So the bank came with us, all banks except for one. But the Rabbanut canceled it. And that's one of the places where I understood the Rabbanut is completely disconnected from the people because what the good of the people is to not be in debt. And disconnected from the initial biblical ideal. I mean, they're willing to give up the making real or realizing the biblical vision of Shemitah only so they control the committee that spends the 80 million. And because they didn't want Shemitah to change suddenly. They're used to it, it's like that. It's called for farmers, but a lot of the money goes to Shas and to Agudat Israel to give to people to study on Shnat Shmita. It's a lot of foilish tickets. We tried to do another option. Again, I'm talking politics because it is a political issue. We tried to do civil union, not civil marriage, which is completely coming across against them, doing another avenue of civil union that says any two human beings that want to be a couple can come to a place that we will set with someone that is similar to a judge by authority, and they will be written as a couple and get all the benefits and rights in this country as a couple. And if they want to let it go, they can undo it in the same place. And again, when you try to legislate it, the Rabbanut doesn't let it move. They want to hold the monopoly to be the only gate for being a couple and coming out, but not let most of the people, I don't know if most of the people, but there's a bigger and bigger number of couples that can't come into the door or don't want to come into the door. It includes people that are not Jewish by their standards, a lot of the Russian Aliyah, a lot of the Ethiopian Aliyah, and people that their father is Jewish or something like that, or converted in a reform conservative way that is not seen by them as a real conversion. And for myself, I could get married in the Rabbanut, but I wanted an egalitarian marriage, and they would not do anything egalitarian. So they're holding the door, and they have the authority, and they have the budget, and they have the power, but they can't give the service. And
what do you mean by an egalitarian marriage?
The marriage, when I did get married, the guy, איך אומרים לקדש? betrothed. He said, הרי את מקודשת לי, and gave me a ring, and I said, הרי אתה מקודש לי, and I gave him a ring. The woman איך? Consecrated? Wow. צריכה לראות את זה. The Jewish marriage, the halachic Jewish marriage is one-sided. The man does all the talking, the woman stands there and is being wedded. In the tractate of Ktubot, in the Babylonian Talmud, there's a conversation, there's a sugya, and they ask why wouldn't we let a woman, although do that, and they say that if a woman will say, הרי אתה מקודש, and give you a ring, you cannot marry another woman. So we don't want to go there. So they decided that only a man does it to a woman, so she can't get married to another man, but a man stays with an open option. And that is not a reason that I can accept for non-egalitarian marriages. So any talk that a woman wants to say something or bless or to have a wedding that is, because the reality of it today is two free people that are coming into a relationship and building something that is egalitarian. So having a ceremony that is completely alien to the reality, I don't feel is the right way to do. In such an important day of your life, when you get married, you don't want to say things that are not true. But if you want to say things that are true, you can do it through them. And if you don't want to do it with them, again, you have to go overseas. But you want to do it at home, you want to do it with your family. You don't want to buy tickets for everyone to Cyprus. And you don't know the person in Cyprus that's going to do the civil marriage. I mean, she's nice, but it's weird. So that is the big problem today. Now, many years I thought that the rabbinate could be fixed. But today, I'm honest with you, it's a terrible mechanism. It became not just not right, but bad. It's doing damage. Yes.
I mean, who pays for it?
We do, the citizens.
And they don't feel, because we were saying before, where the Haredim feel that they're too Shiladim, and people to the left feel like they're too right. There's no one feels like that fact that they pay, I guess, for their taxes, right?
Yeah.
No one feels that they can have any kind of accountability there. It's just an iron wall.
2.7 billion a year is...
Okay. I don't know how old it is.
I don't care, it's water. יכול לקרות במים. That, oh, thank you. That's much better with red because I'm a girl.
Sorry.
Wild girl, not a girl. You have to burn it after they see it.
We promise to burn.
You eat it like in Mission Impossible. We used to eat it. You asked me something important. The money. 2.7 billion a year is spent on Jewish services a year, and zero of it is going to non-Orthodox communities. So 2.7 every year, we are paying for our taxes, and we get nothing. Now, this is a civil revolution or intifada that didn't start yet, because for some reason in Israel, citizens vote for other issues, not for identity, because we are threatened all the time, or because we are Catholic. The church we don't go to is Catholic, from Catch-22. So Israeli Jews are much more Catholic, where American Jews are usually Protestant. When you're a Protestant Jew, you want your synagogue to look and feel like what you really believe. When you're Catholic, you take that gap as something authentic, like Italians. They don't believe in God, but they like the Pope. They say terrible things about him, but they like the Pope. They don't want the Pope to be suddenly modern. That's a Catholic way of thinking. So Israelis are Catholics. The synagogue they don't go to should be Orthodox. They hate it, they will have jokes about it, but when they say Reform synagogue, they don't think it's authentic. And we are in a process of change because American Jews are very influential here, or anyone that has spent time in North America starts getting in love with the idea that you can go to a synagogue where you actually feel that you can identify with the rabbi. But that's part of it, is that the whole country is Catholic. Ignorant people don't feel that they have the right to change because they don't know anything about Judaism. So they think maybe the ones that look like that, maybe they know something that I don't know, so I guess they're right. Why can't a woman talk in the marriage? Oh, maybe there's a big secret that I just don't know. But then you open the book and you see there's no secret. And it's to their benefit that it's like that. So first of all, there's not enough study. That's why your year here is very important. And your study is very important because the only way to build real power is by study. Once you know, you can talk to anyone that says that they're the authority and open the page and look. So that's one reason. The other reason is something to do with tradition, that people feel that this is authentic and they are not. It had to do with the secular kind of cut, mostly in the Ashkenazi Jewish world, that people left and went away, and they still have some kind of guilt feeling of authenticity. His grandfather and I went away, so when we do something Jewish, let's do it like he used to do it.
You talked about some of the economic costs of Israeli society or Israeli government investing only in Orthodox Judaism. Do you have a sense of what the non-economic, and I guess what I'm asking is more spiritual costs of there being one way to be Jewish, under the Israeli government, and how that impacts Israeli society?
That's like my life journey. That's everything I do. The majority of Israelis feel alienated from their heritage. We grew up ignorant in Judaism, between biblical Judaism and modern Judaism. So Mishnah, Talmud, Kabbalah, and Chassidut is lacking. And once you feel ignorant, again, you don't have bitachon atzmi, self-confidence in demanding to do it your way, and you don't even think there's anything good there. So you go to India and you go to learn other cultures and you look for spirituality there, because the way it is dominated today doesn't look very spiritual, or it doesn't look like spirituality that you can identify with. So some people do become ultra-Orthodox and the others just...
Can I ask a follow-up question on the same lines? You said that part of the reason that people feel alienated is potentially because they have this guilt, right? Like, oh, my grandfather was Haredi, but I'm no longer that way and I feel guilty about it. The same phenomenon happened in the United States, right? Like, my great-grandparents were from Haredi communities, and now I'm completely secular, but I still feel very connected to the Reconstructionist movement in the United States. And what's the difference? Like, what happened?
That's a very interesting question. One of it is one of the reasons I think, I don't know it, but I think, is that American Jews are a minority within a very Protestant community that is affecting, although they are not Jewish, the way things are done. In America, you are a winner when they don't see that you're Jewish. You want to assimilate. Assimilation is a very good thing for your parents or your great-grandparents when they came to America, or great-grandparents. They didn't want to look Jewish, to sound Jewish. They changed everything about them, their names, and there's a Jewish weekly paper that has articles about Jews, that the new Jews, they were already there for a generation, and then Jews came from Eastern Europe, and they had this sound from the nose, and there were articles how to avoid talking like that, not to sound like a Jew. So to assimilate was a good thing, and authenticity, I guess that if I would ask you what you are, one of the first words will be American or Canadian, and your authenticity is there. In Israel, because everyone was Jewish, and in the beginning everything was new, but families were cut, there were only young people, the families were left behind, and a lot of the grandparents died. That's a very interesting question, because also in America there is the same amount of ultra-Orthodox community, but they don't affect you in the way, they would not dare say to the American government, we will not work, and we will not study core curriculum, and you will pay our schools. That's no, but in a charter school in America and in New Zealand and in Canada, you have to study core curriculum. That's like obligate. That's what I saw.
But on a local level, there's more possibility. Like, for example, in New York, in areas like Muncie and some Graham Brook, there's some areas in New Jersey. There are places, for example, if there are children who are special needs, who are yeshiva, the municipality or the county will end up paying for the yeshiva special needs education.
Okay, but if it's special needs, it makes some kind of sense. Here, the municipality and the state pays for the yeshiva and the people with the special needs and the normal needs and all the needs and everything. While they say we will not be, for example, ministers because we will not vow to the state. Now there's the first minister of health that was willing to say he's a minister because he wanted to stay in power, but because Yair Lapid went to the Supreme Court and said a person that will not give vow to the state cannot, swear the oath to the state cannot be the minister. So there are anomalies here, maybe because it's in the family, maybe because everyone or the majority is Jewish, and some of it is because of I think the Protestant Catholic difference of what's authentic. Authentic in America is be true to oneself, to what you are now. If I'm gay, I want a Jewish gay marriage. In Israel, authenticity is what you are not, what it used to be. And if I'm gay and I want to get married, they have the gay women, the Orthodox gay women and the Orthodox gay men that are trying to be Jewish and to be authentic to themselves. The authenticity to Judaism is more complex there. But your question is better than my answer. It's a big question. Why does it work in America? Maybe because, I'll just think a little more, maybe because when you have a state, you have responsibility for the public space. In America, you don't. You do what's right for the community. And sometimes you have solutions that are communal. In New Jersey, they will do this, and in Muncie, they will do that. But you don't have to do it all around the country. Here, everything you decide is on everywhere. Okay.
It's a question I think about guilt that was associated with a certain power context in Israel, in the state of Israel, in that moment, in the Zionist enterprise, and then where we're at today. So there's a story told about Ben Gurion when the Haredi leadership in 48 said, we know there's a war, but we're not sending, you send all the yeshiva bochers to fight, they're dead, there's nobody to study to actually save the souls of the country. And Ben Gurion says, okay, 400 students, this is the beginning of the exemption.
And that's a very good decision, I think, because we do want to keep the yeshivot.
Exactly.
But it was 400.
Exactly. And Ben Gurion, like you alluded to, people say about Ben Gurion that he assumed that within a generation or two there'd be no Haredim left. Because we had a state. We don't need to cling to the Torah anymore. We have a state. It's modernizing. They wouldn't be able to resist that pull. We don't lose that much by giving this small exemption. Now, thousands of people don't serve in the army. It's a big thing.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. People are like, Ben Gurion, if you believed that they were going extinct, why didn't you sort of just like force it then? And people say Ben Gurion didn't want to be the person to eliminate Haredi Judaism. And I think the guilt isn't so much on the wide scale, like my Zaidi, my Saba was a scholar, so I like feel it's like, now that there's a Jewish state, we established a Jewish state after 2,000 years, and now we're going to lose one vibrant form of
Not only then, today I will fight for Haredi yeshivot to stay. It's a beautiful way of study,
So
and we have to keep it. It's one of the resources of Judaism, but that doesn't have to come with no service. You can say, I'm not going to army service, so give civil service. Again, that's something that American Haredis will not do. Give some kind of service. Give service in kindergartens. Give service in hospitals. Do something for the majority. What they do here, and it's very flexible, is they want to live in Israel feeling that they're still in Galut. But when you do it to Goyim, they felt okay with it. Now they do it to us, meaning they take money from the Jewish state as a Goyim state, but they will not really affiliate it with, so they will not give service to it. I was part of Yesh Atid, and we legislated equal service. What we said there is not to not let Haredi people study Torah. I think they should study Torah. But first of all, only the ones that are the equivalent of 400, which today might be 2,000 and not 20,000. And also the good ones, the ones that are like artists or dancers that get permission in the army to dance, because they're a treasure for the country. The same will go to a scholar, but also for a woman scholar that is a reconstructionist. It should be open to any kind of scholarship in Judaism. But you can say, I want to do this while I do my army service, and my service will be teaching children Judaism. But that today it's completely off, and once we got out of government, they went right back at it. But the army, I think more and more will go in, because there is a process of people wanting to live a more normal life, also wanting to study some core curriculum. But I don't know, I'm not a prophet.
Can you speak more about what you want to see happen to the revenue in the future?
Yesterday, someone asked me, I met South American kids, and they asked me if you were the prime minister, and I enjoyed it so much. Went on thinking in the evening. If I would be head of the Rabbanut, first of all, I would open up for different kinds of authorities. Any community should have the right to live their Jewish life by their rules. So there'll be many gates and not one gate. Many gates for conversion, many gates for wedding, many gates for divorce. So it will be, like you do in economy, when you open it for competition, you... הפרטה כזאת, yes. So then a citizen will have the voucher, and you will decide when you want to become a couple, where you put your voucher, and they will get the money according to how many couples came to them. Instead of they are the only ones, and they get the money from the government. And if people will come to the different places, then the best place that gives service will get the money that they really do the work. I would make it top down or up, bottom down, up.
So I want to jump in here, and I have 1.5 questions for you. You mentioned that you said the following: it would be okay if the rabbinate would be more flexible. And I think you gave an example of what that brings to you. Right now, with the answer to the prior question, could you speak a little bit about what's happening now with alternatives to the rabbinate that are not trying to do away with the rabbinate, or at least that is not their mission, like Zohar and team, different organizations like that? And a slightly different question, and this is a perspective I really want from someone who's been in the Knesset: what is the relationship, in a broad sense, a specific sense, of Shas and UTJ and the rabbinate?
UTJ זה עבודת ישראל? יהדות התורה. איתים, I don't know well enough. I think they're doing very good work. Zohar, in my view as a secular Jew, the door is a little more open, but it's still closed to me. They're Orthodox. They don't accept not egalitarian marriages. And again, it's not enough. Maybe many years ago it would be a solution, but Zohar is a nice, polite, smiling way to do almost the same thing. It's not a solution for me. They are partners. I like David Stav and I would like to work with him. But what they do for my community is not a solution. Itim, I'm not sure exactly what they do, so I won't talk about them. What did you ask?
Shas.
The Shas is a little more open than the Ashkenazis because Sephardi Jews are more open than Ashkenazi Jews. And Rabbanut is ruled mainly by the Ashkenazi. The one that stopped the Shemitah initiation was an Ashkenazi Jew. I don't know how it's not supposed to be connected. There's הפרדת רשויות, איך אומרים?
Separation of powers.
It's supposed to be separation of authority, but they are connected and they work for them. It wasn't a charming thing to see. It's not democratic. I feel that if Shas would have more power, the ideal of Shas is a beautiful one, of building the Sephardi. If I will say something that is very, not accurate, but maybe helps thinking, the Ashkenazis that were formed in Christian countries are more about guilt and shame, and the Sephardis are more about loyalty and kavod and honor. All of it is not simple to function with, but when Rav Ovadia established Shas, there was a possibility of building some Judaism that is more mainstream and more flexible and more open. But because they were educated by the Ashkenazi, and they all want to study in Ashkenazi yeshivot, they become as from and closed as them. I still felt, I'm saying personally, I felt more connected to the Shas people. I could study with them, I could talk to them. The Ashkenazis were very violent, very hostile, very closed, very anti-Zionist. The Shas is Zionist. They are not against the state. The ones that are in the Knesset, they were in the army. They look like normal people. The kids go to normal schools. Most of them live in the periphery, in Moshavim. Ashkenazis are hardcore, closed communities. But everything is changing even while we're talking, so don't take my pictures.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to ask, so you said, going back before where you said you had your conception of what you would do with the rabbinate. Would it still be receiving 2.7 billion shekels a year in your conception? Would it be as big? What size do you think the rabbinate should be?
The size of the need from the citizens. I wouldn't give it money as such. Rabbanut, if it stays, it should be a service that you, the citizen, decide. And it should be big or small, and the budget should be big or small, vis-a-vis how many people are using it. there's no reason to give so much money. Kacha, out like that. It's, there's a lot of shchitut, there's a lot of corruption. In Shemitah, there's all kinds of deals. They go and bring vegetables from Jordan back to Israel, and then the Israeli farmers are suffering, but they have all kinds of deals there. It's, you know, most of it I don't even know, but I felt like sometimes you are just devastated. Where can you even start? It's so many years of this plot case, so maybe there's no way to save it, and you just have to free Judaism from politics. That would be the best. I think Judaism will thrive when people can choose it, as opposed to having it on their heads like that. But having said that, American Judaism, between us in a closed room, is not flourishing so much. It's not that you see there hundreds of new Batei Midrash and initiations and beautiful theater and music and film. No, it is getting smaller, and the Orthodox are doing the best job. It's a challenge. But freedom, I believe that religion and spirituality can only live in freedom. So even if it'll get smaller, it can't be forced.
So kind of along those lines, an important comment that Jonathan Sarn made about the American Jewish community is that the Orthodox bet the house on schools, and they won. And while like conservatives were building good synagogues and all that, when they weren't investing in education and in Talmud Torah as their primary focus, that they lost. So in terms of what motivated your focus on giving access to Torah learning to secular Jews, and kind of where does that fit into your vision of what Judaism and what Israel can look like in the future?
Thank you for the question. My great belief is in study. I don't think you can think something that you don't know. That's I'm quoting someone that quoted someone. The limits of your thought, the limits of your world are the limits of your words, your language. And you can't think of something that you don't know. I'm a great believer in study and in long study and in thorough study, and the fact that they took away Talmud and all of what's around Talmud, I think, is one of the sins of Zionism. And also the ignorance of American Jews is embarrassing. And the ones, the ignorant about Bible, about poetry, about, Hebrew. People that can't say a word of Hebrew can't really touch the thing itself. The language it's not everything, but it's a big deal. And Hebrew schools are the worst thing that happened to Hebrew. I think what's working very well is camps. Everybody knows that. And camps, because it's not obligatory, because there's a lot of freedom there, because it has to do with, it has life in it. And some kind of education along the lines of camping is a good idea. And just learning by heart and learning the language and knowledge. And it is a language. Judaism is a language that you have to speak in order to live through it. And that's what I try to do in my community and for myself. To have a broader language and therefore to have a broader life.
Information, maybe you know, because you said 2.7 billion shekels to provide state money, Jewish services to, let's say, 80% of the population.
80%?
The Jews are.
Yeah. What happens
that whole system
with
exists for Christians and Muslims. Do you happen to know how much state budget goes for Christian and Muslim?
The budget is in so many different places. There's no one place that says this is Jewish services. It's not clear. So they had to go and look for mikvaot and for madrichim. So that's why it took so long. I was in the committee when we talked about the Arab, but I don't remember the number. And Christians, they do fight. The politicians fight in the education committee and in interior. The Vadat Apnim, they fight all the time for the minorities. I don't think it's like the secular community doesn't get anything that has to do with a percentage. I don't think the Arabs do. Although the איך אומרים, הכרזת העצמאות, the Declaration of Independence says that any people will have equal budgets for their culture, but it's not the case yet. It has to do with politics, and I'll just say the last thing. Secular Judaism is very ambivalent about politics and politicians, and people don't want to be politicians. Therefore, the table where you sit and make decisions is left for other people that make the decisions. And surprisingly, they take all the budgets and the money. So if you want to change something that is on state level, you need to be at the table. And we need to educate ourselves that politics is not a bad word if you're not bad. And that it is, the way I see it, it's civil service. You have to give service and do it for a few years, as much as you can, in order to, במקום שאין נשים, משתדל להיות איש. Try to do right where you feel that it's done wrong. And staying at home and being cynical about politics just leaves a black woman that came to the Knesset told me, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And if you don't want to be on the table when other people make the decisions, you have to be at the table. Therefore, think of all your friends. There's not one serious friend that goes to politics. So who's going to make the decisions? So that's my 5 cents of changing the world. תודה רבה. תודה רבה.